In this episode of the Orange Nerd Show, where we talk about everything except the theme parks, today we're talking all about Marvel at ComicCon. A lot of interesting stuff was announced last night. We're going to talk about it, break it down. I got the Italiano. I got Mr. and Mrs. Slimer in the house today. Up next on the Orange Nerd Show. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of the Orange Nerd Show. I have a fantastic panel with me today. We're talking all about Marvel. Kevin Feige did it again. He broke the internet last night. Some people love it. Some people hate it. Before we dive in, Mr. Sticky, welcome back, sir.
Glad to be back, and I guess as of today, I'm George the Italiano, but I guess I'm also known as the non-virgin Virgo. Apparently yes. Now, so
that is very, very funny. The non-virgin Virgo, yeah. You're definitely not a virgin, George. I can,
it definitely puts a whole new meaning because of being Italian of extra virgin olive oil. You just gotta.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's very, very true. If you let everybody know where they can find you on social media, Mr. Sticky.
Absolutely, you can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter.
You don't have a name, by the way, Mr. Sticky, if you're a virgin. You know what I'm saying?
That is true. That is true. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You can also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you can find me right here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There we go. He's the sticky guy. There he is, Mr. Sticky. And down below, we have Mr. and Mrs. Slimer. Welcome back on the show, both of you. It's good to see you.
Hello.
Good to see you. Thanks for having us back.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Slimer and then Miss Slimer, if you could let us know where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, so you can find me on SlimesCore84 on X, formerly known as Twitter. And Mrs. Slimer, you can find her every now and then here on Orange Grove 55 with Mr. Slimer today, Slimer Pool. Just for the weekend. Yeah, we got a lot of Deadpool going on this weekend, so I figured I'd change my name. But I'm Slimer, otherwise Slimer Pool today.
Yes, absolutely. And the Deadpool at DCA has been killing it. I mean, with the unicorn thing and absolutely crushing it. I'm surprised how campy it feels for Disney, to be honest with you. But yeah, hitting a home run with that stuff. But let's go ahead and dive right in. We got some news. This is courtesy of GQ. Robert Downey Jr., Dr. Doom, plus all the other big reveals from Marvel's Comic-Con panel. So it says here, Marvel Studios has found its Dr. Doom, and it's Robert Downey Jr., who got a hero's death as Tony Stark in 2019's Endgame and will return to play the villain in the next two Avengers films. This is crazy. George, I'll start with you, brother. You were not too happy when we were on the phone yesterday and I broke the news to you. You were like, I don't know how I feel about this. How are you feeling now, 24 hours later?
So I kind of weighed in the playing field, so to speak. I kind of played devil's advocate of looking it through both lenses, so to speak. I can understand it in the sense where I absolutely am a huge fan of Robert Downey Jr. As I said before on our previous live, that I love a good comeback story, the underdog, if you will. And he's like the poster child of that. So, I mean, I have high respect for him and what have you. And I'm glad to see him back into the MCU in some way or form. But I just don't know how I feel about him being Dr. Doom. Like I knew we were anticipating that eventually we were going to get Dr. Doom to come into the MCU, and I was kind of thinking like, well, who could it be? They have to get someone kind of like that nitty gritty, but kind of have like that kind of dark, deep, kind of like baritone kind of voice. And now it kind of just like flushes down the toilet a little bit with Robert Downey Jr. Nothing against him, but just for that role. So I'm kind of iffy on that, but then also at the same time, I wouldn't want to see him come back as Iron Man because I feel like of how his character ended in Endgame. If they bring him back, which I mean, technically they could. It's Marvel with the multiverse and what have you, but I just feel like
no one's ever really gone. Oh wait, no, that's Star Wars. Sorry.
Yeah, but I just feel like that the ending of Endgame would all go in vain. It wouldn't be as powerful. It would feel kind of diluted if they brought him back as Iron Man.
Yeah, I feel like this opens up, and I don't know if they're going to go with it or not, but a lot of people on Twitter were talking about this. I feel like it opens up some really interesting emotional tension, though. Like like we were talking on Twitter and stuff about, like, with Spider-Man, right? To see his hero now be the villain, how does that affect Spidey? How does that affect his ability to come to destroy Dr. Doom or come for Dr. Doom? It creates an interesting dynamic there. I'm very curious.
Fuck Spider-Man. I'm talking about me. Like, when I see him on the screen, like, I'm just going to see, like, Iron Man. But then again, we did hear from some people on our live that there are different variations of Iron Man and different variations of Dr. Doom.
Yeah, there are. Is the multiverse stuff, and there's a lot of this is kind of dabbled upon in the comics, which I admittedly do not read the comics, but apparently there is something to it in the comics. But we'll see how it works out. What do you think, Mr. and Mrs. Slimer? Do you like this idea, or are you kind of iffy on it?
Well, I love Robert Downey Jr., so I'm about that. But yeah, I'm also questioning inside, like, well, how am I going to feel when I see him not as Tony Stark? You know, because it's him.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it, but I'm happy to see Robert Downey Jr. again because I love him.
Yeah, no, he's fantastic, and you're right. I mean, and if he's going to come back, I agree with you, George. If he's going to come back, if they're going to bring him back into the MCU, I'm glad he's not coming back as Tony Stark. I'm glad they're going a different direction with him, because it would diminish that end game. You know what I'm saying? So, what say you, Slimer?
So you know what? So for those that are interested in Robert Downey Jr. coming back as a different character in the Marvel Universe, I love your point about Spider-Man. It is going to create a unique relational tension between not just Spider-Man but the Avengers,
right,
with a new villain that looks exactly like Tony Stark. And so for those that are interested in tension, how it relates to story, there's actually different four types of tension in drama. There's the tension of task, the tension of relationships, the tension of surprise, and the tension of mystery. And I feel like introducing Robert Downey Jr. as the villain, as Dr. Doom, actually checks all those boxes. Because there's certainly mystery about what his character is going to bring to the table, how he's going to be received by the characters, the Avengers that actually fought alongside him when they were fighting Thanos. There's certainly going to be tension of task. You know that there's going to be a point of the movie where they're going to have to kill him. And are the Avengers going to be up to the task of taking out Dr. Doom, who looks identical to Tony Stark? And then there's the tension of relationships. So it all intertwines to create a massive level of tension that is going to be necessary to create like an epic story, dynamic that we haven't seen since Infinity War and Endgame, which arguably had some of the most tension out of all the movies that ever were released in history, which is why they were so popular and so big. People go for the drama, and those were two very dramatic films because everything was at stake. So I personally am looking forward to where this is going from a creative standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint. I think that there's going to be no shortage of drama, as opposed to if they were to go with a character or an actor that didn't look like Tony Stark. How boring would that have been? I mean, we tried that. That was the Kang Dynasty, and that's a villain who is arguably just as strong, if not stronger, and that created no interest whatsoever. Or I mean, it was maybe a blip on the radar, but nobody's crying that it's over. So I think that kind of tells us everything we need to know about where people were with the Kang Dynasty versus what we're getting now, which is a Tony Stark Dr. Doom.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Oh, I'm getting an echo. It's kind of weird. No, there we go. Never mind. False alarm. I completely agree with you, Slimer. I think it creates a very interesting tension. And like, I was kind of going the Spider-Man angle, but you're absolutely right. It's not even just for Spider-Man. It's for all the Avengers. They're going to have to take this person down that looks just like Tony. It's going to be really, really hard for them to do that. It's going to be both physically hard to do it, but also emotionally, psychologically hard for them. So I think it's kind of interesting how that whole thing is going to kind of play out. Now, we also got some other news at this panel, which I found kind of interesting. We got Avengers Doomsday, okay, May of 2026, and Avengers Secret Wars, May of 2027. I'll start with you, George. What are your thoughts on this? Do you like these? Well, we had Secret Wars already, but they changed Avengers Doomsday, that was not the original name for
Correct.
this particular movie. Russo brothers are coming back for these, which is actually very exciting. But what do you think? Doomsday, you like that name?
I do, actually. And yeah, the Avengers Doomsday was previously known as the Avengers, the Kang Dynasty. And so this kind of solidifies the fact that the Kang Dynasty is kind of like dig, squat, and buried, at this point. So it's like, and now this kind of locks it in. It's like, okay, it's all going to be about Doctor Doom. And I love even the release dates on these because they're a year apart. So that tells me that they're going to basically film this kind of like Pirates of the Caribbean style, like together, but 2 separate films.
And didn't they do that with Infinity War and Endgame as well? I thought it was a similar dynamic. Yeah,
they did. Yes.
And that works. That works well.
Yeah. So that way they can kind of release it, and it gives enough time in between, but not too far of a gap where people kind of like lose a little bit of the interest where they kind of because we all know that Doomsday is definitely gonna land us on a cliffhanger that's going to lead us into Secret Wars. And also too, I'm very curious to know, because they teased us with the Deadpool and Wolverine, like silence your cell phones, where Deadpool and Wolverine were having a discussion, and Deadpool had mentioned, I'm so glad that in Secret Wars we're finally going to get, and it cuts to the phone ringing. Right. So I'm curious to see like what that actually is all about. But I think honestly, both movies are going to do, I think they're going to be very successful, especially with the Russo brothers at the helm of this. I think honestly, they were the perfect match to kind of tie this all in together.
Yeah, they were. No, they absolutely were. Bringing the Russos back was fantastic. I think Robert Downey was a smart move. Obviously there's some concerns from fans. I get that, but I do think it's going to be handled well. So I think just bringing him back alone is going to cause a lot more interest for this. Dr. Doom in the equation is going to cause a lot more interest. And from what I'm hearing, I could be mistaken. I think even the Fantastic Four they're going to be in. They're going to be in
both. They're going to be in both. Yeah. So that even might have been a little of what the hint for what Deadpool was talking about. He might have been referring to the Fantastic Four.
So it seems like Marvel's kind of getting back to like basics, right? Because for a while there, Marvel was kind of going after like these secondary characters. You know what I'm saying? Like, Ms. Marvel and She-Hulk and these characters that like people were interested in. I don't want to downplay it, but like it wasn't the main event. They're getting back to the main event here. We got Doctor Doom, Fantastic Four, Deadpool, Wolverine. Like we're getting back to like the characters people really, really care about,
Yeah, Christy and I were talking about how fantastic it would be if you had Pedro Pascal, RDJ, Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman. Yeah. I mean, you throw them all in one movie. How is that not $1 billion 3-day weekend? I mean, look, Disney is not messing around. When they got RDJ, they're thinking $800 to $1.2 billion 3-day weekend, just like Infinity War and Endgame. Those are the numbers they're seeking.
And even though that Robert Downey Jr. wanted to come back, but I could imagine the price tag that came along with him that Marvel is going to pay to have him back in the movie. I'm for sure it's a pretty lengthy. So I mean, they're already banking for their buck to have him back in the movie. But I have a question for the Slimers. With what OG was asking me, I'll let you guys answer that. But I also have something to attach to that I asked OG on the phone earlier what his thoughts on, and I want to get both of your opinion on it. That as of right now, Mandalorian and Grogu is going to be releasing the same month and the same year as Avengers Doomsday.
Yes.
What is your take on that? Do you think that would affect the box office in a positive way, or do you see that kind of cannibalizing the notion that people would not go to see 2 movies in 1 month, and which one would they kind of choose?
What do you think?
Well, my professional opinion about Pedro is that I will be there for all of his movies and Gladiator 2. So I don't have a problem with him being Mando and then seeing him, in another role or 2. So meaning we will go watch Pedro no matter what.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Mrs. Slimer on that. That's a Pedro Pascal double feature right there.
Yeah.
And the Pedro fans are definitely going to show up. The Star Wars fans are going to show up, and the Marvel fans are going to show up.
Yeah.
To use a more recent example, we saw Twisters last weekend, and we saw Deadpool yesterday. and both of them were big. I mean, big number movies. I mean, Twister took in 80 million domestically, and then it took in I don't know how much worldwide.
That's funny. We kind of had the same movie route because I saw Twisters last week and I saw Deadpool and Wolverine yesterday.
Yeah,
We did then.
and we both enjoyed them for different reasons. There were reasons I enjoyed Twister more than Deadpool, and there were reasons I enjoyed Deadpool more than Twister. But those are two different films, and I think that everybody's going to show up for both of them. I don't think these two particular movies are going to cannibalize off of each other the way that I don't know, like the way that okay, so we have Deadpool and Wolverine, and then pretty soon we have, what is it, Trapped, that's coming out, that new Josh Hartnett movie directed by M. Night Shyamalan. I think that's going to be affected by a lot of films because on August 16th you have Alien Romulus coming out, and then
Gladiator 2 with Pedro.
Yeah, then you have Gladiator 2 coming out. So I think those are the kind of films, those more obscure films are going to be the ones that are going to be cannibalized, unfortunately, because I'm pretty sure that's going to be a good film just based off of the trailer. But Star Wars and Avengers I think are going to be more like a Barbie Oppenheimer duo. What do you guys think?
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, if these movies, if Doomsday is a fantastic movie, right, and I have faith in it. I mean, overall, Kevin Feige, I think he's really smart. I think a lot of the shortfallings for the MCU in recent years really, I don't think it falls on his lap too much. I think it was a lot of like Disney or even Bob Chapek kind of pushing like, just to get as much content out there as possible to fill up Disney Plus. So a lot of that, the quality kind of suffered because they wanted just the churning of this constant content. Bob Iger has come in and said, we don't want that anymore. We want quality over quantity, right? So I think Feige's kind of going to get back to like old school Feige. So I'm sure Doomsday will be amazing. Star Wars, if they do it right, and here's the thing with Mandalorian and Grogu, it's being directed, I think, from Jon Favreau. Now, Jon Favreau, he's not perfect. I mean, I didn't love Lion King live action, but everyone has at least a bad day in the office, right? And so that was one movie, but by and large, his movies are really, really good. He's a talented filmmaker. I think Dave Filoni's involved too. I'm pretty confident Mando and Grogu will be very good as well, assuming Kennedy and all that, they don't get too involved and meddle too much. I think they can make a solid movie. So if that movie is great, Mando and Grogu, and this one's great, I think people are more than willing to see two movies at the same time. Like you were saying, Twisters and Deadpool. You guys saw it. I think a lot of people did. Even in animation right now, I think Inside Out 2 obviously is making a huge amount of money. Despicable Me is making a lot of money. Maybe not as much as maybe it could, but it's still very successful. So people are going to the theater for multiple movies at the same time. So I think it's possible. The only thing that I think might hurt, I have less faith in Mando than I do Doomsday, just because of, I think Marvel as a studio is run better. If Mando and Grogu is a divisive Star Wars thing again, we might see some problems, but that's more of a Mando and Grogu issue than it is a Doomsday in the same month kind of thing, Sorry.
You know what I think would resolve that is if they associate or if they attach Sean Levy, the director of Deadpool and Wolverine, to the Mando and Grogu project, as opposed to Jon Favreau, because that name alone in the movie trailers is going to almost assuredly give everybody confidence that it's going to be a good film. Sean Levy, I mean, he killed it with Wolverine and Deadpool. So, and plus they've already, I think the San Diego Comic-Con kind of solidified the fact that the Rey movie is going to be coming after Mando and Grogu. So we might be looking at a 2026 release for the Rey Skywalker film. What film do you guys think that they would attach Sean Levy to? Do you think it would be the Mando Grogu movie, or do you think that it would be Rey Skywalker?
It might be the Rey movie, because I think the Mando and Grogu is the next one. Is the next Lucasfilm movie, right? It's coming out the same month as Avengers Doomsday. So I think that one's pretty locked in already. I think the Sean Levy, maybe it's the Rey movie or something along those lines. And I think it's smart too with the Rey movie that's not the first one out the gate since Rise of Skywalker. That would have been risky because that's a divisive character. A lot of people don't like the sequel trilogy. You've taken at that point, you're taking so many years off. I mean, that would be 7 years you took off with the box office since 2019. You need a home run out the gate. I think Mando and Grogu is more of a sure thing than a Rey movie. A Rey movie is really, really risky. So it's smart to have Mando come out first and then a Rey movie down the road, you know? I mean, if you're going to do the Rey movie, you don't want it to be your first movie back since 2019, in my opinion. Now, look, I support the Rey movie, and I think people that don't like the sequel trilogy should support it as well, because it gives you an opportunity to sort of make the sequel trilogy better, right? Like, for example, when it came to the prequels, a lot of people didn't like the prequels when they came out. But as we got more content in that era with like the Clone Wars series and things like that, that kind of filled in those gaps, put some meat on them bones, people started to like the prequel era a lot more, and in turn like those prequels a lot more. A Rey movie, if done really, really well, and even like sequel trilogy, like even like Disney Plus shows, can kind of have the same effect on the sequel trilogy. Now, again, if done really, really well, you know what I'm saying? So,
and I hope I'm wrong. I'm kind of iffy on that notion of a Rey movie, but it's like, if you beat it with a stick, at the end of the day, it's still a piñata. You know, it's like, I'm just like, I don't know. I'm just kind of like over those characters, to be honest with you. I feel like I'm done it, like, because they, again, speaking like beating it with a stick. It's like, because that's all you hear and see. It was like Galaxy's Edge timeline of the sequels, the Star Cruiser, the same timeline. It's just like, I want to see new material. And you're right, OG, making, if they were to move along with that film, whether it's done right or wrong, but it is risky to, on the back of Rise of Skywalker, to bring that out after how many, I mean, it's been 5 years, but by the time it's released, it's probably going to be like 7 or 8.
Right.
But you know, that's just my personal opinion on it. I would love to see like different content coming out of Lucasfilm now. I feel like I'm kind of done with the trilogy, but I am very excited for The Mandalorian and Grogu, though.
Well, and the Mando and Grogu sort of plays to the normies. I knew a lot of people like at my job and stuff. They never watched a minute of Star Wars in their whole life, but they watched Mandalorian because little Grogu kind of got them into it, right? It was like Grogu was like the gateway drug into Star Wars for a lot of people because he was just so damn cute. So people were like tuning in just for him, you know? So I think it's very, Mando and Grogu is a very like normie friendly sort of thing. I think it'll be okay.
It's kind of like a sure bet in a sense.
It is, sort of. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
It's probably the surest bet Lucasfilm has in their.
Do you all feel like that theaters are making a comeback in general?
Oh, that's an interesting question. What do you think, Slimer?
I don't want to use anecdotal evidence because anecdotal evidence is weak evidence and not strong. I would say that from the movies that we have chosen to watch, the movie theaters are doing, I would say, okay. The problem is that we go to 1 out of 3 movie theaters in our area. So I can't tell you how the other 2 are doing. It's funny because there's like 3 Regals within a 5 or 10 mile radius where we live. One of them is new. The other 2 are 20 to 30 years old. So we just avoid them completely because they don't have the big, comfy electronic reclining chairs. Yeah. They don't have a full service bar. They don't have RPX. So I can't say how the other 2 are doing. But if you look at the numbers are showing that movie theaters are actually down 66% year over year from last year in terms of revenue, including the blockbusters. I will say this, though. I would say that this year is a good year for movies. I'm not sure it's a good year for the movie theaters, however.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, it's probably, I think like Inside Out, Deadpool and stuff, I think it's helping. I think it's helping them keep afloat. But I agree with you, Slimer. I think the movie theater industry in general is going to have a real rough road ahead of it, regardless of some of these movies, because you have Disney CEO Bob Iger coming out saying we're going to do quality over quantity, right? Well, that's good for Disney, but that's not good for the theaters because the theaters need constant content in their theaters to bring people in. And if Disney's saying, hey, look, we're going to make less, that's not good for the theaters, It might become a little bit more of a niche market, like theater going experience. Not gone completely, because I think there is a market for it. I don't think it's going to go away completely, but yeah, it probably will become a little more niche. Maybe not quite as, maybe not every single movie that these studios produce goes to a theater. Some of them might just go to streaming. It's going to be a little more selective. But what do you think, George?
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see it because, as you both were saying, like depending on the type of film that you're going to go see, a lot of people aren't going to make. I think that the days of like movies like Meet the Parents, which don't get me wrong, I love that movie, but it's like you're not going to see make over $200 million. You know, I think like the rom-coms are pretty much going to be like set for like streaming services. You know, I think people are going to utilize the theater going experience for these big banger kind of blockbuster films, ones that they can not just relate to, but movies that they recognize. So like when you see the title of Star Wars, it's like, okay, well that's in, you know, worldwide pop culture. It's like, okay, we have to go see that in theaters. When you see the title of Marvel, it's like, okay, yeah, we have to see that. We love the comic books. We love the other movies. We have to go see that, you know?
Yeah. Every movie we've seen this year has been a sequel, a prequel, you know, a franchise film. The next one we're going to go watch is Alien Romulus when that one comes out August 16th or, you know, when I get back from Disneyland. But
yeah, you guys are definitely copying me for sure.
You know what?
You're copying us, George.
Yeah. but you know what I did notice? I noticed that the tickets for RPX actually went up significantly. They used to be like $18, $19, and recently they were like $20 to $22. And I don't know if that was out of sheer demand or if they were making up for the lack of demand by increasing the prices, because matinee was $15 and change, and then all the way up to $22 for RPX.
Is that
which is
that how much? Is that how much your tickets cost?
Yeah. So, well, when we went to Deadpool the other day, it was matinee, so we caught it for like $15 or $17. I actually have a Regal Cinema Pass, so I actually go for free. Well, for free, I pay the monthly rate,
right?
But it's like $22, $23 after taxes. But then I got her a discounted ticket, and it was like $15 or $16. But then RPX was like $22, and that's several dollars up from what it was even a couple of weeks ago when we went to go see Twister. Twister, I think, was only like $18.
That's interesting.
And then Deadpool was $22.
That's interesting because the prices out here, matinee prices are $8 and evening tickets are $8.75.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. And we get the recliner chairs and the
what?
We're getting ripped off.
Oh, you're definitely getting ripped off.
That's wild.
And you know, usually that's the thing is, hey, is this movie worth me getting out of my home to go see in the movies? Only unless it's like RPX do I really want to go do the whole movie.
Then I could definitely agree with people. If you're paying like $18 to $22 per ticket to go to, I'd be like, oh yeah, fuck the theaters. Like, I'm not doing that shit. Yeah, because I'm thinking like, yeah, because out here it's because I get my tickets usually through moviescoop.com, which is connected to the Cinemark franchise. Yeah, it's only for matinee, it's only $8.
Wow.
That's wild.
That's like 90s prices.
Yeah, seriously.
But George, you live in Pennsylvania. I'm not going to say the city because, you know, for your own privacy and all that stuff. But
yeah, that's okay. Pittsburgh, you're good.
He wants no privacy.
Yeah. But you don't live like in Pittsburgh.
No, I don't live. Yeah. No, I don't live actually in the city.
So you're a little bit more. Would you say you're a little more rural than
rural? Yeah.
Yeah. So that might be part of the equation as well. Plus, you have Regal out there, but it's a Regal Eagle, isn't it? is that the supermarket? It's Regal Eagle, right?
Giant Eagle.
I always get the name wrong. Oh man, I got to brush up on my Pennsylvania. You know, so I thought it was Regal Eagle.
And the reason why I mentioned about Pittsburgh is because our friend Bricky gives me shit with my Pittsburghese accent.
Can you say downtown Pittsburgh for us, George?
Downtown.
There it is. All right. So the next thing we're going to talk about is Fantastic Four. Okay. Now this is crazy, right? But it says here, Screen Time says, first look at the retro futuristic New York City in Fantastic Four set in the 1960s. So it's a 1960s, very like like space race kind of vibes. They do actually, the trailer got leaked online, but Disney's been like swatting that thing like right and left. It looks pretty cool though. I was able to check it out. I think Slimer, you saw it as well on Twitter.
I did too.
You did too. Yeah. It was cool. It was very, very cool. It's very 60s.
And can we just say before because I know this is going to be brought up. I think it's so funny that all of us like around like the same time in unison, like just said Fantastic
Tomorrowland.
Tomorrowland. It's a done deal.
It's perfect for Tomorrowland. It's absolutely perfect. That kind of Jetsons future. It's perfect. I've said so many times, by the way, with Tomorrowland, that one of the big issues with Disneyland's Tomorrowland, and even Walt Disney World's Tomorrowland, to be honest, is that there's not a huge IP that can really go into this land. Like when you're looking at expansions at these resorts, they're looking for like Frozen or like Coco or Zootopia or like Avatar, like big, like heavy hitter franchises. Tomorrowland as a theme doesn't have a whole lot of those kind of IP they can put in there. Now they do, though. Now they do. This is an IP. If this movie does $1 billion plus, they can do a really cool kind of Fantastic Four e-ticket and put it into Tomorrowland. I don't know, though, how that would work in Florida. I don't know if these are some characters that are limited because of the Universal contract. I know it doesn't include all Marvel characters because you're able to have Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't know if these are included. They might be. I think they are, though. I think they are represented in Superhero Island.
Slimer, refresh my memory. Is the Fantastic Four showcased on any of like the facades or murals or anything in the Superhero Island?
Yeah, Fantastic Four is actually heavily showcased in. There's actually even a ride there called Sea Storm. So, and then you have
that's that spinning fucking thing, right?
Yeah. There's unfortunately a lot of Fantastic Four in there, so there's no way they can get away with that in Walt Disney World. But I mean, if they put Fantastic Four into Tomorrowland, it's going to be the one that counts the most, which is the original Tomorrowland, Disneyland. That's where it really belongs. And there's so many rides over there they can just get rid of completely and replace with some, whatever. I mean, you have Astro Blasters.
Exactly.
This is a new conversation, right?
It definitely smells like ass in there.
Absolutely.
What is that word you used before the show, OG? The cologne word you come out with?
Oh, Baducci.
Yeah. It's
got the Baducci fragrance over at Astro.
Absolutely.
Space Ranger Baducci.
There we go. I haven't used my fart drop in a while. It was a perfect opportunity, it was just perfect. I had to do it. But
like George said, man, it's like, they're handing Disneyland, it on a diamond plate. Like if you're not using it, like, what are you doing? This is the perfect IP to put in Tomorrowland.
Yeah, exactly. And this movie, I'm telling you, like I know the last few like Fantastic Four movies weren't great. This particular these particular characters haven't had the greatest run. I have high hopes for this. This looks really, 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 really good. Yeah, will you be seeing this in theaters, George? Or what do you?
Oh, absolutely. Think? Oh, yeah. I'm definitely gonna check this out. There are certain movies that kind of catch my attention, where whether it ends up being good or not so good, but I'm very curious to see the route that they go with this, because I've seen every single Fantastic Four movie that's been made. The 2005 one was okay. Silver Surfer, pretty good. The remake of it was completely atrocious. I was not a fan of that last one. So they really need, like as our friend Kaylee says, a banger of a hit when it comes to Fantastic Four. And I think if they go this route, it's a completely different approach than the other Fantastic Four films. So I think honestly, this might be the one.
Yeah. What about you, Slimers? What do you think? I mean, Pedro's in it, so probably, right?
I'm in.
You're in. Yeah. And Slimer, you're in.
Yeah, I mean, if she's going, I'm going because I'm buying. So
that's right.
Exactly. Yeah, this one looks really interesting to me. I really like the setting, the time period. I like that retro future stuff. I think it looks really, really cool. I'm really bullish on this. So we'll see.
Babe, do you like mid-century stuff?
I do.
Okay.
I'm a big mid-century fan.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you probably like Disneyland because we have a lot of that. Yeah, like Disney. Like our downtown Disney it's becoming all mid-century, and they're doing the whole thing mid-century. It's cool. Yeah. It's a cool era, really cool.
It is.
Era.
I had to go buy a mid-century home, mid-century furniture. So I'm about that mid-century life. I will be there at that movie as well.
Nice. So, in terms of the other announcements, we got some other stuff going on with what was it, Thunderbolts, Slimer, I believe. They announced something with that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so they announced Thunderbolts, which has a release date of May 5th, 2025. And we also have, right before that, Captain America Brave New World, which comes out February 14th, 2025. And Fantastic Four comes out July 25th, 2025. So we have three big Marvel movies coming out next year. But I think they've taken their time with all these movies. None of them look or feel rushed. Brave New World looks pretty good. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I got Winter Soldier vibes.
Yeah.
With Brave New World. That one looks good.
It looks really grounded. I like it. I like that one a lot. Thunderbolts I'm interested in mostly because of Harrison Ford. I don't know. Him being Red Hulk, I think is an interesting thing. I'm curious. I'm very curious.
That's Brave New World with Captain America.
Oh, I'm sorry. Brave New. That wasn't Thunderbolt. I thought it was Thunderbolts. Okay, my bad.
Yeah, that's the one we're interested in because it's got Harrison Ford. He's going to turn into Red Hulk, and you got Captain America back, and it looks like it gave me like Mission Impossible vibes, kind of, Born Identity vibes, which I feel like should be a staple of, like, if you're watching a Captain America movie, that's kind of the feeling I think they should just go for. Like, what is it? Born, Mission Impossible.
Yeah, exactly.
It worked for Winter Soldier. It worked for what was the other one? The first Avenger.
Yeah, Civil War was another
one. Civil War, kind of the same thing. A lot of espionage, a lot of backstabbing. This person was this side all along.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. The Captain America franchise is awesome. I'm a fan of it. I hope this one's good. This is the thing. Marvel, I feel like Marvel is finally kind of getting its stride back. You know what I'm saying? I feel like the energy is in the air for this franchise again. So if they can, look, we already have a hit with Deadpool and Wolverine. You know what I'm saying? If these next few movies can do well, I think we're back on track. I think we're golden. So it's a toss up. We'll see. What say you, George? What about these releases? You interested? Not interested?
I'm curious. I don't know necessarily if I would go to the theater to see them. I have to Thunderbolts. I would probably be a little bit more than the Captain America one, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know. Like I felt like once Steve Rogers kind of put on the shield, so to speak, like that was like that ended for me. But I know they had to continue on the character. But again, just like and I know they even touched upon this because when I saw the preview of when they said to Falcon, you're no Steve Rogers, So I love how they touched upon that nerve in that sense. But I'm curious. I just don't know if I would go see it in a theater. I do want to see the movie, but I think I could probably wait for it to come out on Disney Plus.
Okay. All right. Interesting. We'll see. A lot of crazy Marvel stuff. Well, we'll keep an eye on it. Obviously, the big news is that Doctor Doom thing. So we'll see. Doctor Doom, though, real quick before we go, Slimer and Miss Slimer, I'll start with you, and then I'll go to George. What do you think? You think he's going to show up in Avengers Campus?
I hope so. I mean, why wouldn't he? That's especially once the movie drops. So we've seen how popular Wolverine and Deadpool are.
Yeah. And
I hate to say I called it, but I called it when it came to Deadpool and Wolverine. I've been talking about them coming to Avengers Campus and doing a comedy show for the better part of 6 months. I think they need to make it a permanent attraction, though. I don't think they're temporary characters. I think Deadpool and a Wolverine skit deserves a little bit more than a makeshift set that they can just roll in and out as needed. I think that they deserve more than that. I mean, especially if this movie's bringing in $430 million in a 3-day weekend. That's insane. The demand's there. Give people what they want. Right now they have it announced as a limited time meet and greet / show. I think that's a big mistake. I think that they just need to go all in on Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah.
And they need to go all in on Dr. Doom, especially if RDJ's playing him.
Yeah, 100%. Now, do you think, because George and I talked about it, but you haven't been on the show in a little bit, Slimer. what are your thoughts on the conversations? A lot of conversations on Twitter about the appropriateness of having Deadpool in there. Like, obviously, he's not in the park telling dick jokes or anything, but it's still the idea of like this R-rated character. I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, obviously, I mean, is it okay or is it kind of?
Well,
what do you guys think?
I mean, Alien was a big part of MGM Studios / Hollywood Studios for the better part of 25 years. And nobody took an issue with that.
Well, see, I disagree with you. I don't think Deadpool and Wolverine need their own thing forever and always. I think it's okay that they're coming in because, okay, I get it. It's Deadpool and he's like a, like a stick comedy thing, but I don't need him hanging around all the time. I would get annoyed by that.
So, Mrs. Limmer, do you feel like this is something that works within the promotion and marketing for the film, but it's something that would kind of pivot and die out in time where people would just be like, okay, this is kind of getting a little bit monotonous and annoying?
Well, I guess, the market would have to dictate that. I think it just depends on if the demand holds or if it doesn't. But, whether it does or doesn't, I don't know. I don't want to make that prediction, but market will dictate that. With regard to, whether I think this is a little bit too avant-garde for Disneyland, no, I think that we've done this. Disney has taken this route many, many times, and I don't think this is anything new. And to claim that this rendition of Deadpool is exactly like what you get in a movie, I think would be disingenuous. We all know he's toned down. Obviously, he's not coming in making the same jokes he's making in the movie.
Exactly.
That would be egregious. But no, this is not new at any park. We had. We had, like I said, we had Aliens. I feel like that was probably that was a rated R thing. And then Indiana Jones Indiana Jones hasn't always been the most kid friendly. I mean, you got Kali Ma pulling out hearts and burning people alive. You have the face melting.
No, he's okay.
The
for
face
kids.
Melting. That's good.
I always say, just like do whatever it takes because it's like at the end of the day, it's Disney. Why does it have to always be about the kids?
There you go. Well, yeah. Here's the thing too. You have a lot of these franchises, like the Bourne franchise, isn't really kid friendly. It's at Universal right now. You had Terminator at Universal, which is also, not exactly kid friendly, and there's a lot of these. Exactly. So you can adapt them to a theme park experience where they are appropriate. I made the argument too, like Who Framed Roger Rabbit? That movie for its time in 1988 was very risque. I mean, the way Jessica and all the the innuendos, and then they put a bunch of that stuff in the Disney parks, so
or even not even just Jessica Rabbit, like even some of just the other innuendos where Eddie Valiant walks into the bar and he's trying to shove Roger into his trench coat and he sucks all the way down. And Dolores looks down and says, "You got a rabbit in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me?"
Exactly. And people will say like, "Oh, well, that's not as bad as what Deadpool says," and that's true. But you have to understand, this is a product of the late '80s, which back then it was way more risque than it is now, and especially being animation. I mean, animation back then was much more kid fare than it is now. It's much more accepted for everybody, but back then it really wasn't. It was still considered kind of children's entertainment. So interesting stuff. But I want to thank you all for joining today. Italiano, I will start with you today with your fresh new haircut. If you could let everybody home know where they could find you on social media.
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you can find me right here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There he is. And the Slimers, if you could let everybody home know where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, you guys can find me on X at SlimeScore84 and right here at Orange Grove for Jack 55. And and that's it. Georgie, you look like you might be ready to hit Florida with that short haircut, buddy.
Oh, I'm ready. Yep, I got it all set because by the time my 3-week run is over, it's already going to be probably filled in. So kind of started off fresh.
Now the beard, we had a beard growing contest recently, George. Now, how long has it been no shaving? Because it's pretty full now.
What was it, last Thursday, I think?
So a little over a week?
Yeah, Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah, which I am going to shave this, but I'm going to keep the mustache and goatee.
Why don't you just get a Fu Manchu going, brother?
Exactly. Would you do it or no?
If the ladies like it.
Ladies like that.
You know what I'm saying?
All right.
The NVV, that's an MVP.
There it is. There it is. Oh, thank you all so much for watching this episode of the Orange Nerd Show. We talked all about Deadpool. We talked all about Fantastic Four, Dr. Doom being played by Robert Downey Jr. Comment down below with all your thoughts. And until the next time.